to this week's History Chat Live. I've been on my travels, so we'll talk about that. I've also been delving into quite a few books, and I have been interviewing. So I'm going to tell you all about that today. So welcome. Thank you for watching on Instagram or YouTube, live or on the playback. And hello as well if you are listening on the podcast. So we've got quite a bit of history today, and it's the 1st of December. So happy Advent, everyone, if that's a thing. As usual, let me know if you can hear me okay. And anyone who's buying me a badge on Instagram, very, very grateful. Thank you very much. As you will know, you will be contributing to a better mic for me for Instagram. I'm looking for a lapel mic to do to touch to my phone. If you're on YouTube, you can super chat me and post a comment. So I thought, because we've got 3 sessions and sessions. Let's go if we call these a session. We have got 3 History Chat Lives until we break for Christmas. Now, I think I mentioned it last week. What I want to do is do a little bit of a 2022 review of the places I have visited. And I did do a little count up, but I can't remember I can't actually remember the number I've been to. But if I just give you a little, this is how many places I've been to. And each one, if it's a new place that I've been to, I've put a little dot next to it. So I'm going to tell you about places I've been back to and places that were brand new to me this year. I have also been interviewing this week, which is very exciting. Hello, Rebecca. Happy December. Hi, Jenna. Happy December. Did any of you see my reel yet that I have put on Instagram of my first day of my Advent calendars? Anyone who's following me last Christmas will know I have a lot of Advent calendars. I only put 2 on this morning. There are more to come. So we're getting into the run up till Christmas. So I've got some ideas for presents for you, books wise. I may as well mention now, if you want to gift a subscription to my Substack, that is now a possibility. And in that you can get the blogs that are otherwise exclusive to Patreon. Patreon is still the place to be if you want all of the history stuff, which is of course patreon.com/British history. Or Harry Potter. Excellent. A Harry Potter Advent calendar. So right, let's get into it. Now, what shall I start on? First of all, let me say welcome and thank you to Eileen. She is my newest Patreon member. So she will be getting, as soon as, along with all the other patrons, on Sunday, my interview with Helen Carr, who wrote this fantastic book, The Red Prince, all about John of God. Oh, I'm sorry, there's going to be more books on your book list to come. I can see people go, no, I've already bought so many books. You can try and resist. You can try. Anyway, so I interviewed Gab. No, I haven't opened all of I haven't got a chocolate one. I don't like chocolate Advent calendars. I have picture ones, or you'll see I have on YouTube, you will be able to see because it stays clear, but I have a London in snow scene one, and I have a Tower of London one, which is not well, it's not in this room. I'm going to probably move them all into here. But my all-time ever favorite one, which you can't actually make out on Instagram, is Santa. And he moves down, basically. He moves down the chimney as you pull out the days on these. He sits on little bars. There's 3 bars per level. So 1, 2, 3, and then he drops down a level. 4, 5, 6, and he drops down the next level. You'll love it. I'll post it every day and you will be addicted as me. And I can't find another one. I don't know where I got it and I can't find it. So if anyone ever knows of anyone who's selling them, then share, because let's spread the joy of the Santa chimney Advent calendar. Oh, Rebecca, my daughter bought an Advent calendar with small bottles of wine. She broke into it for Thanksgiving. It's all gone. It's all gone already. I can totally understand and sympathize. Right, Sunday. My interview with Helen Carr will go live for patrons. So members of my Patreon British History Club, which, as I say, is patreon.com/British History. You can join for a fiver. And it is an extended version, ad-free, of course. But I was watching it through yesterday because I was doing the final edits. Now, John of Gaunt, how much do you know about John of Gaunt? Because if you're anything like me, and actually most of the people I spoke to before I interviewed Helen, he is a man who's familiar, especially if you, I mean, if you've ever looked into Kenilworth Castle as a for instance, because of the Elizabeth I links, you will have heard the name John of Gaunt come up. He's the one from whom Catherine of Aragon gets her English descent back up to Edward III. He is the one, of course, who Henry VII gets his dubious claim to the throne through the Beaufort line, through his mistress then turns third wife, Catherine Swynford. They had all the children by the time they were married. He was the proud owner of the Savoy Palace. Any of you have heard of the Savoy in London? It is on the site of the Savoy Palace. It was completely destroyed. It was destroyed during the Peasants' Revolt. And there's a very, I probably shouldn't say funny, but there is a very tragically funny, it is a little bit funny, story of how that happened. Turquoise Sunset Dream. I know a bit about John of Gaunt through Matt Lewis and Nathan Amin. Oh, you mean you haven't got this book yet? I do put the links to all the books that I recommend. Oh, in fact, I've got one today that I need to do, but on my Amazon shop, which I can't remember I'll tell you what I mean, you're in no way obliged, of course, to go to my Amazon shop. It's just, I thought it'd be helpful when I mention a book to be able to go there and have a look. So I will share. I think that's. Oh, do you know what? I'll find it while I'm still talking. I can do 2-3 things at once. Why not? Let's. I've just seen Brian's mentioned History After Dark last night. Thank you to all of you who came to History After Dark last night. For any of you who don't know what History After Dark is, it's where we hang loose with history. It's still informative, at least I hope it is, and we, but we don't have any barriers. We don't shackles. We don't have any shackles on the swearing or what we talk about. It does get rather funny. Just before I forget though, so it's amazon.co.uk/shop/British history is the Amazon page. So even if you don't buy, even if you don't buy from there, it's fine. I just did it so it doesn't make much money anyway, even if you did. But it's just, I find it nice to be able to send people somewhere so that there's all the books that I'm recommending in one place. And you'll find Helen's book there. So if you're a patron, if you're not, come along, come on, it's fun. I have looked at whether people can gift a patron subscription, and annoyingly they don't do it, and they even say we don't do gifting, which is a bit annoying. But it's £5 a month and you get all the interviews early and you get to ask questions of future guests, so you actually get to put forward your question and they get asked. And that's the extended part of the interview. That's the bit that no one else gets to see. So you get it a week early, you get it ad-free, you get the extended version, and you get a chance to ask the questions, ask any question of the person I'm interviewing as well. History After Dark last night was about, so what we did with a game called Lie to Me, if any of you have ever heard of that. So we had 6 objects, photographs of 6 objects that there were 2. We basically, there's 3 of us does it. Myself, Cat Marchant, from Reading the Past on YouTube, and Catherine, who is not just the Tudor tracker, and we each picked 2 objects. We sent them to the other 2 with no explanation whatsoever, and they had to make up a story, plausible, hopefully, about what these objects were. We then all presented our stories about what these objects were in turn, so one object at a time. And anyone watching, we stream it on YouTube and Instagram. Anyone watching would guess which one they thought was telling the truth. So it was how good actress we could be. Actually, I really enjoyed making up the stories. Like, what can I say that might sound vaguely plausible about something? It was good. Lots of people who joined us, so thank you so much. Yes, so History After Dark was really fun. You can watch it back on YouTube and Instagram. YouTube, I think, is best for watching things back. Also, it's a lot clearer because we brought up pictures of the objects. It's a bit easier to watch it on that. And that's just History After Dark on YouTube. So that was really, really fun. We've got Gareth Russell coming up on History After Dark, hopefully next week. So join us for that. And then is that another one after that? And then then History After Dark breaks for Christmas as well. So get on the Had train if you can take it. Anyway, look out for this. Anyone who's not a patron, you will get to see the interview with Helen a week on Sunday, which I can't remember the date. Is it the 11th or something like that? You tell me and I'll tell you, as my mum always says. It's a really fab interview. So whatever you do or don't know about John of Gaunt, it doesn't, listen to it and you'll be, I think you'll be enthralled with his story. So, right. So once again, if you buy me a what is it now on Instagram? A badge. I think your heart changes color, by the way. I mean, what more of an incentive do you need? And of course, I will give you a shout out. Yeah, and on Instagram you can buy me a super chat. So what was the next thing I've been doing? So Monday I am going to get onto my list of places I've been as well. But let me tell you about what I've been up to because it's been a good week. Monday, I was interviewing Joanne Paul. So here's another book. Sorry, House of Dudley. Now this interview will be out. Why haven't it focused in Instagram? It's trying to be clever. Look, this interview with Joanne Paul will be out in January, and it's all about the House of Dudley. Now I've talked about this book and I've talked about Joanne's work quite a lot over the last few weeks, so I won't labour it now, but just tell you that interview has now been done and will be out in January, and this is a book for your list. I think it's number 1 at the moment. I don't know if any of you have been on Amazon recently, if that's not a swear word, but they've got really big sales on these books. So if you want Kindle versions, especially, like 99p, and as you know, if you're anything like me, I tend to get them in multiple versions anyway, because it's not always practical to have a book, but then they're good for having on your shelves and referring to later. Thank you, Marie. My hair. Now, so linked to the House of Dudley. So I interviewed Joanne in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I went over to the Lord Leycester Hospital. So any of you who, I should start sharing my reels actually as shorts on YouTube as well. So if you follow me on YouTube, you can have easier access to these. The Lord Leycester Hospital, named such because it was established in 1571 as a hospital by Robert Dudley, Lord Leycester. If any of you saw my story the other day, I shared some of the photos from there. I did a reel yesterday. And guess what? If you're members of my Patreon, there's lots more photographs in there. And it actually utilised the buildings that were already there. He didn't apparently change the buildings very much. So although you can think 1571, they date back another couple of hundred years. There's different buildings on the site and they date back to all different times. I am going to release an interview with the master there, a lady called Heidi Mayer. So I will be doing that soon as well, and that will be available for everybody. But the Lord Leycester Hospital, so it sits on the very edge of the old town of Warwick. Well, the Warwick town walls, and actually the wall goes around the outside of the garden. And if you take a look at, oh, I don't know if I put it on my reel. Actually, I think I put it in my story. But there's a door in the wall. I don't know when the door dates back to, but presumably it's very old, because it's not very easy to to uh, um, to put a doorway in such a big wall. But it's halfway down, so you can see how the levels have changed. What does Colleen say? I love the way the Brits just say hospital instead of the hospital. The hospital. We go to hospital. Is that what you mean? Maria, cannot wait to finally sit with a cuppa tonight and get stuck into the 4 latest Patreon posts, including the hospital one. Yes, that's a nice way of consuming it. Rebecca, isn't that where Shakespeare and Hathaway have their office? So it was in the film, but I've not seen the film, so I can't. But it's been in loads of films. The Lord Leycester Hospital has been in loads of films. Now, it's hospital as in hospital, the root of the word is hospitality. So before Robert Dudley created it into a hospital, and explain what that institution actually was in a moment, there was a hostelry, and so a place where travelers could TV show, Rebecca. I still haven't seen it. I'm a bishop catching up on TV and films. So you are thank you, Colleen, for the badge. Thank you very, very much appreciate it. So you it's just inside the west gate of the town, so travelers would come in and you've immediately got somewhere there. They could get some food, a drink, a sit down, maybe a bed for the night. So you've got hospitality there already. When Robert Dudley establishes the hospital, it's a hospital it's really an almshouse, I suppose. So it's set up for ex-soldiers who are injured or destitute. And in fact, Joanne talks about this. I asked her about this at the end of the interview that we recorded on Monday, that's going to be released in January, all about what his motivations might have been. Oh, I can see Colleen's heart. It comes up a different colour. Buy a badge, you get a different coloured heart. And it helps me buy a new microphone. So you've got this hospital that's established by Robert Dudley for ex-soldiers who are destitute or injured, and he establishes this in 1571. It doesn't really change the buildings much, and it's so then you're establishing there a brethren. I was trying to think what I was going to say next. The brethren, and there's still brethren there to this day. So continuously from 1571 to 2022, and will carry on, there is a brethren living at the Lord Leycester Hospital. Which is nice, isn't it? Oh, so like my American but English based mug design today. American company, English based design. So I'll get that interview edited together with the master there, Heidi Mayer, and get that released so that you can see it. But so there's brethren there. Now there's the chapel. There's a chapel there that was the first thing that was there, built over the top of the west gate. So if you've seen my photos, I'll share some more. Of course, if you're a patron, you'll see lots more. But they built this in 11. I can't think of the year off the top of my head. I want to say 1170 something, but I could be making it up. But it is definitely 12th century. Now that it is the whole site is closed at the moment for a renovation. So every 100 years or so, they've had a massive renovation to try and keep the buildings in working order. Now this one will once they're finished, is going to completely improve the visitor experience. So you're going to be able to interpret the building a lot easier. But it also they're also very, very keen, and they putting it at the forefront, getting accessibility into the building, which is brilliant for an old building, because you've got to imagine getting in lifts or something like that for accessibility does mean taking something out of the or altering the building in order to do that, and they're managing to do that really well. So accessibility, so it will be definitely be included in my tours, not every tour of course, but I am looking to include the Lord Leycester Hospital from 2024 in my tours. I may even try and, if I can, squeeze it into September 2023. We've got the Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots tour, and they will be reopened by then. So if I can possibly squeeze it in, I will. But definitely from 2024, if anyone's interested in coming on a tour with me that includes the Lord Leycester Hospital, that will be happening. But yeah, I got to go in. Lovely lady called Wendy and another lady called Alison, who does their social media, showed me around. It was a full high vis and hard hat job, and I'm really excited. I like to see buildings really stripped back when they're having this sort of thing done, and then to go in, you can appreciate then when you go back and see the finished article, just how much work goes into the renovations. It's costing over £5 million or £5 million. One of the things that is there that I haven't shared yet, they've shared it on their Instagram, of course, and I will share it, is this, they call it a seal. It's in the Great Hall, and this seal was created to commemorate a visit from James I, so Elizabeth I's successor, James I of England, and you always have to say, and James VI of Scotland, but he's in England at this point. Anyway, he's visiting, and he can't stay at Kenilworth, so he stays, or he can't be fed at Kenilworth or stay at Kenilworth. I think there'd been a fire at Kenilworth. So he stays at, and he certainly eats anyway, at the Lord Leycester Hospital. And so there's this massive seal. Thank you, Jenna, for the badge. Much appreciated. Thank you. So so there's this massive seal. Now, Heidi says the dimensions in the interview I did with her. I think she said 7 foot. And it's like this big disc on the wall. Now, this has been covered up since the 1960s behind a false wall, false ceiling, excuse me. They have now cut out the bit of the ceiling that was covering it up so that you can see the seal. And it's really big. It's really big. So that was, oh, thank you, Colleen, another badge. Thank you so much. I think your colour might change. There's something about, I was trying to read the other day, there's something about buying multiple badges and it changes the colour. Oh, something. I'm not sure. Maybe it makes it like go on fire or something. I do need a new mic, Colleen. I do. I know. I do. Didn't help. I was a little bit late, I'm afraid, because I'm sorry today, because I'd lost it. Oh, I'd put it in a different place. Never put things in a different place. So the seal was incredible. I'm going to share later on some of the art, little cute artifacts they've got. Now, a lot of the stuff is either packed away or encased while they're doing the work. One of which is the original range cooker that would have been there when Robert Dudley established the hospital. So that was one thing I remember them saying is, but it's all behind wood. Yes, they've kind of boxed everything in, of course. But there's an inkwell with a padlock on it. I'll share that later. There's the seal from James I's visit, as I said. And then if any of you saw my story the other day, the ring pull, so the door bells, literally the bell. So you have a pull on the outside and it rings a bell just on the inside, which is quite hilarious, because I was sort of thinking, well, if you can ring a bell, you could just knock the door. It doesn't ring a bell any further into the building than just next to the door. So but anyway, it's very cute. Still works. So I'll reshare that again. That was really fun to see. So I had a great day. So that was my Monday, interviewing Joanne Paul about the House of Dudley, and then scooting off to Warwick to the Lord Leycester Hospital. That was a good day. That was a good day. I can see the colourful hearts coming up. How fantastic! So two more books I've got. What should I do? Should I do some of the places that I've been to first? So what I'm proposing to do is, because we've got 3 history chats left, including this one, until I break up for Christmas, I want to do a bit of a review about where I've been. This is going to be whistle stop tour, okay? Whistle stop tour. Yeah, peppered in with things I'm going to be doing. I've still got places to go this year as well. So some places I'm having to postpone till next year for certain things that are going on, but there's a lot. So if any, and remember as well, I've got reels and all sorts of things about on my Instagram, and I'm going to say on YouTube, I don't think I have, of the places I've been. Let me just see. Marie, do we know if stuff like the old stove will also undergo maintenance after the building work is finished off? I don't know if it will be still remaining in situ. So what work is needed or not on it in order to keep it? I don't know. It's not going to be used as far as I'm aware. But it's going to still be there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. There's one other thing, and I just cannot think what it was. But anyway, but it doesn't matter. When I go back, so what I'm going to do is do a bit of a mashup of it in the middle of its works and completed. So I'm going to try and stand in the same places. Also, of course, it's winter, so things like the garden is all sort of died back at the moment. So that's going to look amazing in the summer. In the garden, I don't know if any of you picked this up if you watched my reel or saw the story, but there's a Norman arch. So that's 1,000 years old. And then a Nilometer next to it, which looks like a normal sort of garden ornament. But a Nilometer, which I didn't know until I looked up, was used in the Nile 2,000 years ago to test the depth. So how I think they worked is they were in the water, and so as the water levels dropped, you could see what the levels were. That makes sense, because they would obviously be submerged or not. So it's packed with really, really cool stuff. And I didn't even get to go into the chapel, the 12th century chapel on top of the West Gate. So I'll be doing that. So let's have a look at some of the other places I have been this year. So I didn't get started till about, God knows, I've written down here, Wells Cathedral is one of the first places I went to. Now, that was new to me. Wells Cathedral and Glastonbury Abbey I did in a weekend. And Wells Cathedral is... Jenna says that's cool. It looked like a flower planter. It really did look. It just looked like a garden ornament, didn't it? The Nilometer. And then you find out what it was, and it's quite incredible. So so I went to Wells Cathedral. Anyone been to Wells Cathedral? Oh, chewing gums. Have I ever done the tour of Buckingham Palace? Yes. A few years ago, I was invited to go the day before it opened to the public, I think. Well, it is worth doing. It is worth doing. I don't know if how they're doing it now. Are they doing it as a conducted tour, or can you free flow, which is what you could do when I was there? But I would just remember it being really blingy, really blingy. A bit like if you've been to Windsor, some of the rooms at Windsor are very sparkly, very gold. But it is quite amazing to see for real some of the rooms that you would have seen on TV or depicted in drama. Yeah, that is, it is quite cool. Definitely worth doing. Everything's worth doing. Rebecca loves Windsor. Windsor is, I love going to Windsor. Clean, blingy. Oh, blingy. Yes, indeed. Blingy, sparkly, a little bit too much, but it's a palace. You really, if you can't go bling in a palace, where can you? Where can you? So let me pick out a couple of things about Wells Cathedral, though, while I think about it. So there is the original spring. So what I've noticed with traveling around, this is hardly something that just something I've sort of to piece together in my own head. Many of the cathedrals are built on previously sacred places. So maybe there was a pagan temple or a Roman temple, and water was considered sacred. It still should be. At Wells, you have the original springs, which give the place its name as well. Which you can still see. There's if you walk into the little gardens, there is a little hole in the wall, a little sort of windowless glassless window through the wall, and you can see the spring still bubbling away in the garden, which is quite incredible. Now, Wells has a really odd looking transept. I say odd. So there was some problems with the tower and whether or not it would stand up, and the remedial works that look really modern but are very old, and I can't remember how old, but they almost look like almost looks like a little monster to me. So you have an arch, but they have little circles on the edge, and then exactly the same above, and they're repeated, so around north, south, west, and east. So it gives this really incredible sort of different look when you walk in than you'll have seen anywhere else. Of course, the front to Wells Cathedral as well is pretty impressive. And actually, I've just remembered I took a photo there of one of the statues manspreading. Not that I'm accusing men of manspreading, but it was just looked funny. It looked really funny, so I'll share that as well. Rebecca says, I love seeing Windsor Castle from the train. Yeah, Windsor Castle is, when you come by road as well, you sort of suddenly like, there it is, which is really cool. Yeah, chewing gums. Windsor Castle should definitely be on the on your itinerary list. You'll love it. If anyone's coming over to the UK and you just want a hand with your itinerary, I've started doing Zoom calls, just an hour with me on Zoom, where we can go through your itinerary and I can suggest places, or give you a bit of a sense check on the traveling arrangements, which, so that we can arrange that if that's going to be helpful. I've already done it for a few people, and it was so helpful that I've decided to roll it out and make it officially something I do. Yeah, so it should be cool. So there was Wells, and any of you who've seen the film Hot Fuzz, the pub that's in Hot Fuzz is a few short steps away from the cathedral. So I ate in there. That was lovely. Glastonbury Abbey is so it's in ruin, but it's really evocative. I felt. And it dates back to Anglo-Saxon times. Supposedly has had the it's supposedly the burial place of King Arthur, the legendary King Arthur, and his Queen Guinevere. But they found those remains supposedly just after they'd had a big fire and needed some money, needed to attract pilgrims. So you can decide what you reckon, whether you reckon. Oh, my pad's tried to turn itself off. Chartwell was another place I have only just been. Now today I've shared a post about Nancy Astor, who's the first female prime minister. Sorry, no, she wasn't. The first female MP in Parliament, and it's just reminded me because some of the stories that, a couple of stories that I've shared are about her relationship with Winston Churchill. And Chartwell is Winston Churchill's house, and it is well worth going to, absolutely. And it feels like a home. It really properly feels like a home, even though it's really quite a big house. And it's expensive to go, though. I was a little bit surprised at just how expensive. It's run by the National Trust. So for the price of getting in there, you may as well get a membership, to be frank, and the parking. So, but yes, definitely. It's not far from Hever Castle, so you can combine the two. And he was a prolific painter. So if you, when you go, there is his studio in the garden, and you can see how inspired he was just from the views. And the house was bought for him by some friends who raised the money to buy the house, because after Churchill was not re-elected, he got very despondent. I think it's from him we get the term black dog for depression. Well, he certainly used it. I don't know if he coined it. And he just wanted to leave England, and fine, England's done with me, I'm done with England. We've all been there feeling a bit like that. Super expensive parking really rubs me the wrong way. Well, you know what I'm like about parking. So anywhere with good parking. Do you know, I've just thought of somewhere I haven't got on my list. No, it is here. It's here. Somewhere that had great parking was Chepstow Castle. Just mentioning it. No. Chepstow. So he wanted to sell the house, and his friends got together and bought the house, and so all the family were allowed to live there until excuse me, let me just get rid of this person, until they died. So his wife remained living there, and I can't remember at what point it gets given to the National Trust. I'll have to look that up again, but it was one of the provisos was it was returned back to as it would have been during, I think it was during the war or in between the wars, but basically it had to revert back. So you get a amazing feel for what a home would have been like. Do you know what? With lack of technology, very nice, I have to say. Felt very nice, very homely. So Chartwell is definitely somewhere I would recommend. Windsor I've been to. We've already spoken a bit about Windsor. Now, obviously, you'll have seen Windsor a lot on the TV, with the Queen obviously being having her the funeral service, one of them there, and she's now interred there, so you can see her stone if you go. Windsor Castle is it's the oldest occupied castle in the world, I think. And most of the monarchs have had a mark on it, so you can go and you can see the you wouldn't know it from walking on it, but you can see the what do they call it, sort of range that, well, you can see the range that Elizabeth I had built, but on the front of that there is can't think what the word is, but an outdoor walkway that feels pretty, well, it is solid now, but that would have been originally I think Henry VIII put it there to look over the hunting grounds of Windsor, and it's since been replaced with stone, of course. Chewing gums, have you ever considered going on Mastermind? I think it's still running, and I think you'd be amazing at it. Your knowledge is top notch. About parking places specifically, or well, thank you very much. It's amazing what sticks. I probably forget as much as I more than I remember, but so not far from Windsor Castle is Runnymede. So I was really fortunate because I went to Windsor and Runnymede with a lovely couple called Linda and Jeff, who were on tour with me in May, the Anne Boleyn tour, which we do every May. But beforehand, I had 2 days with them, and we did Windsor and we did Runnymede. Runnymede is where Magna Carta was first sealed. So Magna Carta is sealed in a muddy field, and it can still be really muddy, which is supposedly in between. I mean, in between where where King John was at Windsor and where the barons had taken hold in the City of London. So whatever, but it's supposed to have been it's not equidistance, but it's supposed to have been a place of parley for already, it's already established as a place of parley. Now, one of the reasons, as I understand it, is because it was boggy. This is not a place where you would choose to have a battle or a fight. So I suppose the logic being, we can meet, maybe have a fracas verbally. We're not going to get into fisticuffs or a full-on pitch battle, because the ground is just going to mean that we all end up, it's too risky for either side, so we're not going to do it. So you can still go to Runnymede. It's got a bloody road going through the middle of it, which makes it rather noisy, but it is there. And up until the 800, let me think, what would it have been? Yeah, 800-year anniversary in 2015, the only actual monuments on the site that had anything to do with Magna Carta were erected. It was erected by the American Bar Association. So I think over there in the US, Magna Carta is much better known, revered, and maybe understood than it is even in the UK today. So it's a little bit embarrassing, really, to get to the 800th anniversary, and the American Bar Association are what do you call it when it's not I mean, clearly it's not reconsecrated, but they're rededicating the monument, and we still didn't have anything anyway. So there's 2 now. There's an installation of bronze seats, which it's great because it's like an interactive, not interactive in terms of technology, in terms of you can touch them, sit on them, and they depict different things that are linked to Magna Carta and its sort of famous elements, which you can go into arguing whether or not it actually meant to be for that reason. So there's that, and then there's a beautiful one that's since been put in, and it's made the outside, so it's in a circle. Let me try and explain it. And you go in, and we were there on quite a warm day, so it was really cool inside, and you walk in and you can go left or right. It takes you around the edge of the circle, and then you can come in to a center. It's covered over except for in the center, so you're now open to the elements, and there is a pool in the middle with 1 or 2, I'm not quite sure, of the clauses from Magna Carta embossed. I don't know my technical terms, in the metal. So this pool in the middle is metal lined, made of metal, and the inscription is of this clause is stamped into it, so that in the water it reads the right way. It's incredibly tranquil, and just really, really beautiful. Does anything change with the rededication? No, I don't think so. I think they just have another big ceremony. It's all really quite cool, and people get to drink champagne if you're invited. Also, is Balmoral going to be turned into a museum after all by talking about stuff you can visit? I don't know. Has anyone heard that Balmoral is going to be turned into a museum? I don't know. I mean, it's obviously clearly was a major favourite place of the Queen. Maybe we can ask Gareth next week if he knows anything, because he's rather good at royal commentary as well. So maybe we can ask him on History After Dark. So yeah, so Runnymede, I think it's worth going to see, just to be in that spot where such a momentous occasion happened. Now, if any of you've watched my Magna Carta videos, then you will have heard this before. If you haven't, then go and go and have a look on YouTube for my Magna Carta videos, which I recorded mainly at Runnymede as well. But the way Magna Carta was created, so it started off with the Article of the Barons, which you can see in the British Library. It's usually on permanent display, unless they're doing something with it. And you and so the idea is this was for this is the demands of the barons. This is what the barons want King John to comply with, to sign up to. No, I don't know anything about that, Marie, actually. We shall ask. We shall find out. And of course, King John says no. Now, charters were not unique. This charter is not unique in terms of it existing as a charter. Kings would issue a charter of, this is what I'll do for you. This is what you'll do for, this is what I expect in return. But that there is there is an understanding that it is an arrangement by sort of authority, but the gift of the barons or whatever, that there is a reciprocal arrangement with no one signing up to a tyranny, including the king themselves. So the king would issue a charter with sort of this understanding, also always respecting the church as a separate entity. Anyway, which appears in Magna Carta as well. Might even be the first clause. So you have this Article of the Barons. So the barons have got their list of demands. So this is different. This is not the king at the start of his reign issuing a sort of a charter that says, yeah, I'm here and I'm going to do my best for you, and in return I expect these things. So it's different. It's putting the king on the spot. And of course the whole history around Magna Carta and what's happening at the time is long and complex, but they so they send these systems. So of course they then amend them. The king amends them, sends them back, amend them, send them back. So this is what's called shuttle diplomacy, where you've got this like basically back and forth. Rebecca says, in the US, we learn about Magna Carta as a forerunner of the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. Whereas our past Prime Minister David Cameron was asked what Magna Carta was. I didn't seem to know, which I'm quite surprised about, because he had a private education. You'd have thought someone's going to have mentioned it to someone who might be a future Prime Minister. Clearly not. So you have this shuttle diplomacy. Now, it's not the Magna Carta that we get, the first issue, if you like, it's not called issue, is not really complete. So they were supposed to have 25, I think it was, people named that would hold the king to account, that were allowed to hold the king to account. It gets sealed without those names on it. So it's not finished. And my view wasn't there, so can't be sure. But my conjecture, my I don't know, whatever gossip about the situation, I can just imagine him just going, oh, that's it, put my seal on it, done, because he had no intention of sticking with it anyway. And that's the truth of Magna Carta, is it's created and the king has no intention of sticking to it. He immediately contacts the Pope by letter, carrier pigeon maybe, to get him out of it. He's already subservient to the Pope. The Pope is his overlord, and so the Pope issues a declaration. It is effectively annulled by August. I can't remember the date, saying this is evil. No one should abide by it. Blah 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 blah. The thing that saves Magna Carta is John dying. Oh, that reminds me about something else I'm going to tell you about. Anyway, I'll come back to that. John dies, and he leaves a young son, Henry, and so he can't rule on his own. He has some rather clever advisors, and I can't remember the name of the other guy, but William Marshall, who is one who I would love to cover on a historian interview soon. Actually, I'm going to find someone to talk to me about William Marshall, because he's pivotal. William Marshall, for anyone who doesn't know, he's sort of got this sobriquet of being the greatest knight. Now, he actually became a knight. He lived during a time where knights were. It wasn't defined what a knight was. Chivalry wasn't defined. It didn't exist. This developed during William Marshall's lifetime. The use of banners, which then became the use of crests and badges, and arms, all came into being during William Marshall's time. Anyway, that's by the by. But William Marshall is one of the men who is looking after the new young king, and their idea is, let's reissue Magna Carta, but we do it this time in the guise of all the previous ones. This is what we should do. The king comes to the throne, the king issues a charter, we take back control, but we're using the Magna Carta so that we're appeasing the barons, basically. So anyway, so that's Runnymede. See, it's a cool place. It's a cool place to go. Now, the death of King John reminded me of another book. Have you got your pen and paper ready? So this is one I've just come across. I've just come across this lady, Susie Edge. She has a fabulous podcast. Like, you'll love it. You'll love it. And she has this book. It's only in hardback at the moment, and it's not in the US, but you can get it on Kindle, I believe. And she has narrated the audible version. She's got a lovely voice. 1,000 Years of Royal Deaths. So this is why it reminded me of John dying. And I think you'll really enjoy that. I'm going to get Susie on for an interview for my YouTube and for the podcast as well. So obviously, if you're patrons, remember, you're going to get to ask your own questions of Susie. You can ask about any of the monarch's deaths from William the Conqueror. Rebecca says she's seen it on Amazon. Oh, good. So maybe I heard, well, it was being delayed, according to Susie on her podcast. That maybe I'm not quite up to date. That's great then. Well, I can thoroughly recommend it. You could give her podcast a try to begin with if you're not sure about another book, but you're gonna. Anyway, read the book, become a patron, ask Susie some questions. You want to. So I also, as you will know if you've been following me, got rather into Anglo-Saxon England over the last year. Became, and I'm more and more fascinated with it. Of course, there's a lot to know. As an aside, one of the places I went to recently was what's it called? The Corinium Museum in Gloucester. I'm going to go back to Gloucester soon. And so Corinium was Gloucester when it was in Roman times. If I've got that name right. And in the city museum there, which is really, really good. It's obviously, of course, got a lot about the Roman history there, but also the Anglo-Saxon history. And there's a display case, and you'll have seen, I'm sure, examples of Anglo-Saxon jewelry. But what I hadn't noticed up until that visit, and it could be nothing, or I could have made an insightful observation. But so the Anglo-Saxons come after the Romans. The Romans leave. We have complex and people movements and stuff. Anyway, end up what's loosely termed Anglo-Saxon England. The jewelry that is created is, oh, Rebecca's it's only Kindle. Oh, it is coming out on hardback apparently, but that's a shame. But anyway, yeah, so you can get it though at least, and the Audible is available. So do we know where we can find British publications of history books that have been published for a while? Like usually I borrow them for the library till I can afford them. Is there any online book borrowing services? You used to get them for DVDs, didn't you? Do you remember that? Is anyone old enough to remember that? That sort of came. That was really cool. Isn't that how Netflix started? Is that how Netflix started? You could get DVDs sent to you. I'm just thinking if anyone does it for books. So really going to, and one of the things I noticed at this museum is you went from the Roman part with mosaics and friezes and pottery into the Anglo-Saxon one, and then you have this incredibly exquisite jewelry, really, really fine detail. You don't get mosaics, you don't get friezes, you don't get underfloor heating. You don't get walls made of anything that's going to last, but you have this incredibly exquisite jewelry. Yeah, I know. There's my observation. So specifically, now that I can buy a few, I've had issues with tracking down some of Dan Jones's and Illyria's underwear one. Oh, I don't know, I'm afraid. So yeah. So some people prefer physical books. I do the both. I do the Audible and the physical. It depends whether you've got a chance to listen to Audible books, doesn't it, I suppose? So because of my new, anyway, Anglo-Saxon, we're already at the hour already. Are you all right for time, everybody? Because of my new, and let's be frank, The Last Kingdom did get me quite a way interested into Anglo-Saxon England. I visited Deerhurst. There's a chapel there called St Mary's, which was a monastic institution, and Deerhurst was incredibly important during Anglo-Saxon times. Now it's this beautifully tiny place with a few houses and St Mary's. Yes, I'm trying to think now the name that it was before it was called St Mary's, and I can't think off the top of my head. But there again, patrons, you've seen I did a not a virtual walk around, an actual walk around of the church and of Oda's Chapel. Clean Vikings. Yes, Vikings was a good thing. Was it? There's another one. There's a new series of it coming out soon. It's all around that time. Can't think. Valhalla. I think might have another series coming out. So, but yes, with Oda's Chapel and St Mary's, that Deerhurst, you're going right back to Anglo-Saxon England, and in the church, you have animal faces on the so around the doorways. You've got whatever that would be around the doorways, nice things, nice stuff. You've got animal face at the bottom. As you walk into the porch, you look up and it looks really new. This sort of shield. It's sort of very white now and smooth, and that's because it would have been painted on. So that's worth remembering as well, that some of the detail of stonework it wasn't created in stone. It was to be painted on. So it would have been Mary, and the baby Jesus greeting you into the church, St Mary's. But that no longer exists. The Angel of Deerhurst is outside in what would have been the Lady Chapel. It's next to where the Lady Chapel would have been, which is just the footings now. So you can get back into Anglo-Saxon England. If you're a member of my Patreon and you haven't seen that, go back and have a look. It is in the archive, so you will be able to see a look around Deerhurst and Odders Chapel and St Mary's. So Marie, first season of the Vikings, and then Vikings Valhalla came out. Skipped right to that. Yes, so I think there's another one coming out. I'm going to leave you there because it's an hour. So I'll tell you what, lots more places to tell you about. So come back next week and I will tell you more about some more places that continue telling you about the places I've managed to get to this year. So one more book before I go. Sorry, not sorry. You'll know this one already. You'll know of this one. And you'll see I've got my little post-it notes already. It's Gareth's book, Do Let's Have Another Drink. His 101 anecdotes of the Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. There is lots of stuff in here I suppose I didn't know, which is great about books like this. So she only accepted the hand of Bertie, which of course means Robert, doesn't it? But he ended up being George VI. He took his father's name as a attempt at continuity after his brother had become king and abdicated, which is another thing I learned from this. But she only accepted on the third proposal. She also now, did anyone know this? Can't believe I didn't know this. That Elizabeth, so their first child, Elizabeth, who was of course our Queen Elizabeth II, was born by caesarean section. Didn't know that. Anyway, it's all in this book. So you will love it. And if you want to listen to Gareth, I have 2 interviews with Gareth already on my YouTube. One is about the Titanic. He's written a fantastic book about the Titanic, which you'll love, called The Ship of Dreams, available everywhere. But I have an interview with him about that, what I specifically wanted to ask him about, and did do so in that interview, was how come the Titanic took hold? Because it certainly isn't the only tragedy that's happened on a luxury liner. It isn't the biggest. So what was it about the Titanic that captured the imagination? So we go into that in the interview. That is on my YouTube. Also, I have another interview with him, which we did about his other amazing book. He's got lots of amazing books, but another one that you must have is the biography of Catherine Howard Young and Damned and Fair. And I interviewed him about the downfalls of Catherine and her cousin Anne Boleyn. Obviously, Anne Boleyn came first, but how we can learn about both of those by comparing and contrasting the two. So, Lottie, you're further on in the book than me, I think. Then the part about her admitting she burnt the marriage certificate of Victoria and John Brown, well, it's wild. Certainly we'll be looking forward to reading that bit. We should still be having Gareth. Anyone, he's posted about this, so you may be aware he's lost his father. So all being equal, he will be with us on History After Dark next Wednesday, 8:15 p.m. You can watch it on you can watch it on Instagram or YouTube. I would suggest, if you like YouTube, moving over to watch us on YouTube. We're in HD. It looks much better. Which would be really cool. Thank you to everyone who's bought badges today on Instagram. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Colleen. Multiple badges as well, so thank you. If you do want to support me, you can only do it while I'm live by badge. You can't do it after the fact. So you've got 30 seconds. No, it's fine. Doug says it's a different title in the US, the Titanic one, or they definitely have different covers as well. There's always a different cover. I don't know why. Yes, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Absolutely. I like that title, which of course the first Queen Mother was Catherine de Medici of France, wasn't she? If anyone has watched the interview that I did with Estelle Peronque, another one for you to catch up on if you haven't already. I suppose I should leave you to your day, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And thank you for your support. I will see you. So the next time I am live is next Wednesday for History After Dark, or I will see you here this time, 1 o'clock Thursday next week. All right. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.